punishment. If you're going to be using punishment with a dog who is very reactive in a situation like this, a lot of times you're going to notice trainers using specific tools. Now, a lot of these tools will be special collars, either a shock collar, e-collar, a prong collar, where they have a leash tab on or their leash, a choke chain. They will have their little remote ready. Some trainers will use one or the other, but it's very common for them to both be in use at the same time. They will have the leash very tight on the dog like this, so they can give a quick pop. If that doesn't help, or that doesn't work to solve the issue, then they will be using their remote. So, along with this, just being at 5, this goes up to 100. Now at 5, that already hurt enough. Along with this, at the same time, if this were to be jerked at the same time as this going off, that is just overkill. Either one of these, alone, especially together, I consider to be abuse. A lot of trainers who would be doing this with their dog would have both these on. This leash would be very tight. The dog would see the other animal. They would go into fight or flight because they already have 1, a tight collar, 2, it's a metal and it's very sharp and it's very painful on the throat. They would also have this guy going on. Now you can tell when the collar is going off, it should have a little green light here. I am pressing it. It's going off. I feel it. If I had this going on too, it would only exacerbate the situation. They say dogs have very thick skin. They say that they, this should be at a level at 5 where human can't even feel it, but a dog can. This is at 5. Okay, they say humans cannot feel these until they're about 15 or so. 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, let's go down to 1. Yep, I still feel that. I don't know if you can see any muscle there twitching. I can feel it. Let's go up to 12 or 13 or 14 or 15, just to make sure. So here's at 12. That was not me acting. That is my actual muscle twitching. Let's go up to 15. I should only just be able to barely feel it. I can't even talk while this thing is going on. So imagine having this, and I know I'm in control of this. I don't like to hurt myself. I like to show this as an example to people that this is a bunch of baloney. They're not e-collars because it makes them sound nicer. They are e-collars, they're electric collars, but they're shock collars. You're using static shock to punish your animal when they are reacting to something or when they're fearful or when they do something that you just don't want them to do or you want them to do. If you want them to sit, a lot of these trainers will pull up on not only a regular collar but a prong collar and tap this at the same time. That's just for basic obedience. If you want your dog to sit, if you want your dog to have behavior modification training and you take them out on the street and you set them up or you have them sit and you force them to sit still on a street, and every time a dog goes by, if they even get up or they pop up or they stare, they're going to get this zapping. So if you have these dogs, they're going to be set up for failure. They're going to have a prong collar or a choke chain, very likely a prong collar. They're going to have them in a very high collar, very uncomfortable, forcing them to sit. They can't get away from this. This is pressure. Physical and emotional pressure. They have them like this. If the dog even looks at something, they can't move already. They're feeling like they're shark bait. There's a dog going by. If they're like this already and they even look at another dog, they're going to get zapped by this. And this, along with this, is just not any more helpful. Now this, if they're looking at something, is probably not going to be at 15. It's very likely going to be much, much higher, 30s, 40s, or even 50s. Some trainers won't even prepare their dogs, and they just take them out to see whatever damage they can do, see how much they can get their dog to react, and they just bump it way up to 50. Just for the sake of that, let's do that. This is going to be fun. Okay, here we go. Here's 50. Okay? Oh. Okay. Alright, just for fun, we'll do it one more time. Okay. If I were to see that, and I were not in control of that, and I were not able to just hit the button, and I were not able to control when it happens, or how long it happens for, and I were already in a state of being anxious and nervous, and I had this thing right here pulling at me, I would probably just go berserk, or I would end up giving up. Eventually, these animals will develop learned helplessness because they cannot escape the intense amount of pressure that is being put on them from electric shock and metal prongs digging into their throat, as you can see. Now this, again, is my own pressure that's putting on this leash. I know exactly how much to put to where I can tolerate it before I let go or before I add more pressure. A lot of people don't know their strength. They don't know how much the dog is feeling. Dogs are very sensitive. So if I can feel this at 5 and I should only be able to feel it about 12 or 15, I can certainly feel this with just, maybe a pound or 2 of pressure. What's to say for people who give a big jerk to their dog, or they use their whole body language and they sling this dog across the floor like a silverback gorilla would? Why don't you go ahead and let me put one of these on your neck, let a silverback take control of that leash and pull it with all its might. They would pull you, you would be flying across the floor, and I guarantee that's probably how a lot of these dogs feel. This is what a lot of people would be doing to correct their dog, and their dog would end up listening and stopping because they don't want to feel this every time. They don't want to feel this shock. Even hitting that button, I get a little nervous. And then when it hits me, I know exactly when it's hitting me, and I know that I'm the one controlling it. I would be terrified if this was going off every 5 seconds. I didn't know when it was going to hit me. I tense up when I'm about to hit it. If I didn't know when it was going on, it's going to be constantly tense, or it's going to really freak me out. It's going to cause me to get more nervous, or I'm going to shut down because I have no way of escaping this. If I were tight, getting shot constantly, I don't know how high the number is, it hits me randomly out of nowhere when I'm already feeling trapped, there's a dog staring at me, I don't know what to do. Instead of helping me, it's only hurting me. It's making me more nervous. I stop showing the world how I'm feeling, and I shut down. Eventually, that's going to lead to a day when I've had enough, and I'm going to turn and I'm going to take it all out on whatever is nearest to me. It could either be a dog if I get out. Again, I'm speaking as if I'm a dog, okay? Think like a dog. If I were to get out, I might go after another dog because I associate that dog as causing this amount of pain and this fear and this, terrifying internal feeling that I've never been able to understand. I could go after, a kid that's next to me. A lot of times people will use these or bark collars, and if the dog is looking out the window and there's a small child next to them, they feel this shock, they will associate this child with the shock, or they could associate whatever is outside with the shock. They just associate what is nearest to them. So, if you want your dog to be okay, don't use this. Don't use these. Don't use anything that causes pain, fear, intimidation, choking, prongs, e-collars, or electricity. You don't need to use electricity with dogs. I'm not going to even show you how this would happen in a scenario of how to properly do it, because there's no proper way with punishment, especially as severe as this. One more time for the sake of this, go ahead and see how it feels with a human in control of that shock, and that's at 50. This goes to 100. I was going to use this as a different video, and I still might, of showing exactly when I feel it, when I don't know the number and I don't know when it's being controlled. Someone else will be in control. That'll be coming up, I guess, whenever. So hopefully you'll enjoy that video. But for now, this is to tell you, do not use these or this or any other choking or slip lead or Cesar Millan technique, alpha rolling, throwing them on the ground, kicking them in the side, on the side of the neck, pulling their ears, pulling their scruff. Don't do any of that because it's unnecessary and it will make your dog much worse. I did not expect to get nearly as emotional and passionate about this video as I did. I'm thinking it's probably very likely this that got my adrenaline going. This got my adrenaline going versus when it was, just a few minutes ago before I started really shocking myself at 50. Imagine what your dog is going through, and your dog has no control of how often they get shocked or how much they get shocked, and this happens to have little rubber contact points, and the metal ones hurt even more because they really dig in, they really get that good contact. It's just so unnecessary. These should be banned, they should be illegal, they should never be used on any living creature other than the people that are using them on their animals. So don't use these. Take time, understand your dog, understand pressure that's building up in them, pressure and release, understand positive reinforcement, that it does work, understand that food is not a waste of time. This is a waste of time. If you're too lazy to work with your dog and you want to use one of these, then you have every right to, because there's no law that protects animals, but I'm going to see it as abuse. Food is not a waste of time with your dog. You get a much quicker response. Your dog is actually happy to work with you because they're getting rewarded versus punished. I mean, I would only work for someone doing this because I'm afraid of pain, or me being, who I am. I feel like I'm a Shiba in a human's body. I would fight back and I would start biting. I would get even worse. Now, I don't know if it's red at all here. It might be a little bit red here. This is where the collar was. So glad to have that off. I couldn't imagine having it on 12 or 24 hours like a lot of dogs do. Just so you know, the one proper way to use these is you don't leave these on 24 hours. These are not 24-hour collars. They are only to be used when training. There's no proper way to train them. Don't use them anyway, but they're not 24-hour collars. You don't have your ID tags on them. Use a regular flat buckle collar, a clip collar, and a harness if you want to. But these are not regular collars. When you're working with your dog who is fearful or reactive, using brute force is not going to help anything. Put yourself in their paws and think about how you would like to be helped. Now, back in the 70s when they tried electrotherapy, or they would try the electric shock therapy, These didn't really help people. People had lasting issues from these. Even the very first collars that were huge and like a huge battery that just shocked your animal, or it shocked people, and it left damaging results from external to internal to inside of your own head. You know, psychological issues. You don't help anything. You only make it worse, or you suppress it. Think about for yourself. It shouldn't be so hard to have common sense to think about how your animal would feel. You know, funny thing is, people say that these mimic a mother dog's bite when they actually don't, because a mother dog doesn't have metal teeth. She doesn't have all these very sharp little points. It doesn't go around the front of the dog's throat. The mother would never correct her puppy by, throwing it down and having her mouth across the throat. Even if a mother was to correct her puppy using nips, which is very rare, most of the time mothers will walk away, they will bark, they will snap at the puppy without making contact, they will growl, they'll just ignore the puppy. And the puppies pretty much understand. If they were to ever go so far as to nip, then it's just that it's a quick pinch and a move away. We don't know how strong it is. It's not going to cause any damage. But the mother will sometimes put her mouth over the puppy, and the puppy just instinctively lays down and rolls over and says, okay, I'm not a threat. Mom says, okay, you get it, I'm moving away. That's, again, very rare. Mothers are not nearly as aggressive as everybody wants to make it out to be. Because humans are aggressive as mothers. Humans are aggressive with everything. So we like to make it an excuse so that we can feel better about using, electricity and metal to control our animals that are far too happy to work with us if we just use more positive methods or more sensical methods. If that's not a word, then don't worry about it. If we were to use more common sense and think about how our animals would like to be treated, then we would have a lot less issues today. We would have a lot less reactivity. We would have a lot less animals shut down and put in the shelters. I'm bringing up shelter dogs because people say without any training, without these methods, these are saving dogs' lives. That's baloney. That's BS, and I don't care what you say. Those are not helping the dog. The dog would probably be better off in a shelter than having that if that's the only other option for them. I'm not saying the dog needs to be in the shelter. The biggest problem with our shelter animals is overpopulation, not untrained animals that are left in the shelter. These are for pain compliance. They are to cause pain. That's how they work. If you say that it's just an annoyance or just a tap, even at 5, that was not a tap. That was more like someone getting your skin and twisting it, or taking the metal pin or pen and digging it into your neck. If you don't believe it, then try it on yourself. Strap it on nice and tight, real high where the dogs always wear it, and have somebody else control the little controller. So again, I did not expect to go on such a tangent, but this has been bottled up for a very long time, and anybody who knows me really well knows I absolutely hate these items. I hope that they get banned in this country other than just Germany. I hope that they are, illegal, and people are forced to learn properly how dogs work, how dogs think, have more compassion, take more time, be more responsible, and have more responsibility and take more accountability for how they treat their animals. So, to sum this up, which would you rather use? Would you rather use food and help your dog actually learn and figure out things are not going to hurt them? Is that how you would rather learn? Or would you rather have a teacher smack you in the face with a ruler, or have somebody shock you or hit you with a metal collar every time you were to freak out, just like what you would be doing to your dog? But your dog cannot tell you when enough is enough. You get to choose how you train and work with your dog. I can't tell you otherwise. I'm only trying to educate you and anyone else in the world, whoever wants to listen. If you are confused about the methods, reach out to anybody. Do your own research, take accountability, and look it up and see for yourself what you prefer to work with. And if all else fails, then just try them on yourself first before you're thinking about putting them on your animal, and you will see exactly what your animal is going to go through, or at least fairly close, because we can't tell exactly what they're going to be feeling because everyone is more or less sensitive in different ways. So that does it for this video. I know it was kind of a doozy, kind of went all over the place, long tangents and rants, and kind of went crazy there for a minute, but I hope you did enjoy it. I hope it answered some questions out there, more than raising some, and if it did raise some questions, that's okay too. It's good to ask questions and do research, and I don't know everything, and I'm never going to claim to know everything. I'm always happy to learn things. The only thing that I will not listen to is people who say that prong collars, shock collars, choke chains, slip leads, Cesar Millan's methods are okay, and in fact they're good, and they don't hurt dogs. That is just BS, and I will not hear it. I will not, because that is just outdated information. People who support that have never tried it themselves. They don't actually have an education in how animals work. They don't have common sense, which is apparently a superpower nowadays. Anything that you use that is meant to create pain or discomfort is not in benefit of the dog. And that's how I work, is I only work to benefit the dog. If the human is too lazy and they want to use a shock collar, see you later. I'm not going to work with you. Sorry, not sorry. So I'm going to end it here before I go off on any other tangents. I hope you did enjoy the video. I hope it was entertaining at some point. Maybe even with just me getting shocked with the collar, that's fine. If that made you smile, I'd rather take all the abuse in the world for, if it's going to give dogs and animals a better life. So thanks again, and until next time, stay positive. Every time. Is Mr. eating? What's going on? I hear a noise. Oh, it's Mr. Oh, he's